Good morning. My name's Adrian Moloney. I'm the Group Sales Director for OneSavings Bank, which incorporates Precise Mortgages and Kent Reliance for Intermediaries. I'm delighted to be here today at the Mortgage and Protection virtual event, where I'm going to be talking in my presentation about Rebel Ideas, which is about a diverse way of thinking in a brand new world. You've already heard this morning from Kevin Roberts, Jeremy Duncombe, and Amanda Fenner about the market, what's going on there, how you can work with lenders to, improve the experience for you and your clients in terms of packaging cases, and what it means to create, a deeper, more longer valued relationship with your customers and clients. So for the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to try and look into a crystal ball, and who can tell what a crystal ball will tell at the moment, and see what the future may hold and where, our future business, your future business, and your client's future business may come from and what it might look like. And perhaps trying to take a different approach and looking at, some rebel ideas. And by that, I don't mean a Billy Idol song, or I'm not talking about Jurgen Klopp's heavy metal football, but about changing the way we think, taking a more diverse approach to how we deal with clients in what is a brand new world. So before I start, I'm just going to say a number, which is 234. And you may be thinking, has he gone mad? What's he talking about? 234. Well, 234 is the number of days since the UK went into its first lockdown, and the world, changed on March the 23rd. So I'm not normally a figures person, but I'll give you another number, which is 5,616. And no, it's not the number of hours that some of you may feel that you've spent on the end of the phone trying to get through to certain lenders to speak about your cases, but it's actually the number of hours since the first UK lockdown started. But what I'll leave you with is, doesn't time fly when you're having fun? And doesn't time fly certainly when you're busy, as you are at the moment? So what am I going to look at today? What's the agenda of this presentation? I'm going to take us back to seems quite a long, distant time ago, what the world looked like before March 2020. What we as a sector have learned, not just about ourselves, but about our businesses, about our industry during COVID-19 and over the last 7 or 8 months, and actually how and why I believe the intermediary market and the broker businesses will continue to, prosper and conquer as we move through this cycle of COVID-19 and beyond. So a pre-World March, who remembers that? There were no face coverings when you went into a garage, you're into a shop, or if you're lucky enough to go into the office walking around. There were packed pubs. You could go up to the bar, you could order a pint, you could get your drink there. You didn't have to rely on table service. You weren't sat in a perspex screen, or you weren't reliant on a takeaway pint in a plastic glass. We were able to freely travel, foreign holidays. We'd head off to the beach, to the swimming pool, to the sunshine, with our families, and we'd enjoyed that as a regular part of our lifestyles. And of course, who can forget going to live sport? The nearest I get now is watching my eldest son play football on a Saturday, but certainly the last major sporting event I went to was the Tuesday of the Cheltenham Festival before we went into lockdown. But also, who can remember those long commutes into London, for example? We have the pictures there, the packed underground, the packed buses, jumping in and off of trains, and those long queues on the motorway when we were stationary in traffic. Who remembers the crowded offices? And actually, perhaps we pine for seeing our work colleagues and our peers face to face and in the office as we did pre-March. Who remember those long winding business lunches that we used to do? I quite like these, particularly the ones with Paula and Barrett from A3, particularly when I had to pay Barrett. And of course, who remembers events like this when we'd all get together as part of the regular things we did in this industry, and we'd do these presentations in auditoriums, in football grounds and sports grounds across the UK. And I think we all miss them, but actually what we found is that there is a lot of things that we can do virtually. So what have we learned during COVID. And I think first and foremost about our industry, we've learned how durable it is, but we have had to think diversely already, and we will continue to have to think diversely and look at the wider picture. We've learned that a lot of people have strange taste in furnishings in their spare rooms or their broom cupboards when we've sat on Zoom or WebEx calls. I've realised I personally need a home office, and this isn't my home office, by the way, or a garden office or man cave. And I have looked at envy with some of my peers across the industry of what they've worked out of at home. And we learnt that we really, really should appreciate the job that valuers and surveyors do. I've had a lot less people moan about down valuations over recent months, because I think we were all glad when physical valuations came back to our industry and enabled people to start getting their house finance or to move home. We've realised that people's circumstances are changing. They've become more complex. Mortgages are becoming more specialist. There's no doubt about that. We certainly see a big difference in the lack of higher LTV products at times, lenders dipping in and out and changing criteria quickly and having to keep you guys as brokers up to date on that. But what that means is that the public, our customers, your clients, they need your advice more than ever. And actually, what is very evident is that the successful broker has all the components at their disposal for what I consider to be a very, very bright future. So why do I mention components, and why do I have a picture of two electronic devices on my slide? I will come on to that, I promise. But in terms of components, actually you have them all. You have your clients, you have your client's family, you have your client's friends, people they give referrals to. You actually have access to lenders, pretty much the whole of the market, and an understanding of the market. I guess sometimes we take for granted that our clients don't know that certain lenders will take 19 days to look at an application, that it takes 3 hours to get through on the phone to a certain lender, that the people are difficult to get hold of because the supply chain is not as quick as it was pre-COVID. And all of this at a time when people are trying to rush deals over the line or get their mortgage offers out to ensure that their clients can do that ongoing purchase, raise that further advance for that garden office, or potentially beat a stamp duty deadline that we know potentially will end at the end of March. So you understand that supply chain. Not everyone does, and your clients certainly don't. You understand that the market is more complex. You understand that it's not always appropriate to put someone on the cheapest rate because they won't fit that criteria. And what you do understand, and what we're all grateful for, I think, is that there is still a huge demand for mortgages. So why the power of diverse collaboration? Why am I talking about all of the components? Because if you put all of the components of that together, you have a very successful business, a very successful product as the mortgage intermediary. So for those of you as old as me and that are music fans, you'll remember that back in our childhood days, there was no such thing as an iPod. It was a Sony Walkman. If you were very lucky, you got the branded Sony Walkman. If you were not so lucky, perhaps you had a cheaper imitation. We played our cassettes on that, some of which I think I still have in the loft with the thousands of CDs that I collected over the years that are now redundant, as I'm fortunate enough to have my music on what is an MP3 player on iPad. But actually what was interesting about this was that Sony dominated the mobile music market. And actually 2 years before Apple brought to market their iPod, which obviously has subsequently gone on to be music on our phones that we listened to on those glorious days when we crammed onto a tube, we jumped onto a train and we commuted to work. So 2 years before, they had all the components there within their factory to launch their equivalent of the iPod. But actually they didn't talk to each other. Those departments didn't collaborate. And what happened was that Apple launched the iPod. And that tells a story, because had Sony come to market with that product, they would have sold 400 million of those devices, which Apple went on to do so, and obviously went on to develop into the iPhone as well. Now, before you feel too sorry for Sony, obviously they made some other successful bits, TVs, the Sony PlayStation. So, you know, they didn't do too badly out of this, but the iPod was all about collaborating, all about bringing those components together. And just as a side note, if any of you are lucky enough to have that original first edition iPod somewhere in your house, in a box, in pretty mint condition, you're likely to get around £20,000 for it. So, are you an iPad or are you a Walkman? What have you learned about yourself, about your business over these 234 days? What changes have you made? Because I think we've all made changes. Obviously, the picture there of those old business cards, I guess, in a drawer are not predominantly how we do business or we store records today, certainly not with GDPR. But how have you looked at your client bank over the recent months, the recent hours, the recent 234 days? Have you been reactive or have you been proactive? How well do you know their clients and how well do you know their circumstances? We're working in a rapidly changing market. Obviously, we're going into we've just gone into another lockdown. We've just seen an extension of the furlough scheme and the mortgage payment deferral scheme. So the market is moving very quickly all of the time. How well do you know that client that you did that fixed rate mortgage for 5 years ago? The guy that had two 18-year-old kids. Are they looking to get on the housing ladder at the moment? Are they looking to use the Help to Buy scheme before it ends? Are they looking to take advantage of the stamp duty holiday before that ends in March? What about that client that you sorted an income protection policy for that worked in the travel industry or the hospitality industry? Have you spoken to them to remind them that they have that policy, that it can help them out during these difficult times? Or have you got that client like myself, who you've seen 3 or 4 times on a Zoom call, sat crammed in the spare room, that possibly needs to do that remortgage or that further advance to have that guarded office that he's always aspired to have? So, in terms of technology, what have we seen? The way in which we engage with our clients has changed. Face-to-face will return one day, make no doubt about that. Was something that we'll all look forward to. But we can embrace technology. How many of us had heard of the apps Zoom, WebEx or Teams before March? I certainly hadn't. Tech has probably advanced in, I guess, the last 234 days more than I've seen in the 20 years in this mortgage industry. But COVID has more than ever enhanced the need for intermediaries and enhanced the need for your services, because you are much more than a transaction. And actually, in a busy environment, it's really easy to focus on the task in hand. I'm talking about chasing down cases. I'm talking about, as we said earlier, trying to get hold of lenders, trying to get that deal across the line for your client, chasing the valuer, chasing the solicitor, depending on what part of the supply chain or the process it's at. But as I said, intermediaries are not branch-based advisors selling one product. Obviously, it's difficult to get an appointment in a branch at the moment. You are not transactional. You are advisors. It's a bit like the advice you get in your pension every year from your pension advisors. People come back to you to talk about their finance. They rely on you to explain to them about the challenges in the supply chain at the moment. And actually, in a changing, more complex environment, they need your advice more than ever before. They want to talk about different things. We talked about what's going on in the economy. And actually, there's some lenders that they can only access through going through an intermediary for yourself, some specialist lenders, for example. Let's talk about the lenders that would look at buy-to-let landlords, for example, those that might want to take advantage of the stamp duty holiday that's out there. They might have cash to invest. They may treat their portfolio like a business. Think of those clients that have got the specialist income needs that don't fit the black and white of the high street. You can only access that lender through you guys, the intermediary. So remember, your relationships with your clients run much more deeper than just that initial mortgage transaction. So to finish and to wrap up, conquering the new world. There is no old world. We are moving forward in different times. There is only a new world. My advice, don't be a Walkman, be an iPod. And actually, don't worry about all those hours that you lost commuting in and out of town. The way in which I do my business, my meetings will change. I won't be going to some of our head office functions for an internal meeting just for one meeting in a day, losing those hours. I'll be looking at that garden office, like I said. I'll be looking to be able to work smarter. And remember, now more than ever, your clients need you. And as the world becomes more specialist, and it is going to become more specialist, you have all the components to help them. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for listening.